What's going on, guys? My name is Matt the Red. Welcome back to another daily January video. Today is January 10th, which makes this the 10th video that I've recorded this month. Have you seen them all? If not, there's a playlist linked in the description, or maybe off to the side. I don't know where YouTube puts it. I don't know what device you're watching this on, but there's absolutely a playlist that you can catch up on all the videos that I've done before. So that's 9 days of content if you want to catch up on some 5 to 10-ish minute videos. I think that'd be an awesome way to do that. If you're new, welcome to the channel. I hope that you enjoy this content. Today's video is a little bit different. We're going to be talking about a biblical theme, but it's more of a biblical hypothetical, okay? So the title is somewhat confusing, but I hope to clarify what exactly I want to talk about in relation to God's concern for animals. Now, I don't have notes off to the side, so I'm going to look at you right here. Often people are upset when their animals die. And as I talked about in my video on death, I've had 2 cats in the last year who passed away, who we had to put down because of various illnesses. And a lot of people in moments like that think that they're comforting by saying things like, oh, at least it's not a person, and people who trying to give sympathy for the fact that people have more value in God's eyes. And so the argument goes something like, well, if it was a person and they had a relationship with God, they're going to be in heaven, but your animals, God doesn't really care, and they're just going to die and be gone forever. And their argument is based on the fact that the Bible clearly reveals that humans have souls, and their assumption is therefore, because God created mankind uniquely, all animals and everything else God created is just going to be destroyed and forever. And that is not an argument I like, and I also think that's an argument without biblical support. Certainly, God made humanity different than he made the animals. I will not deny that. And certainly God has a redemptive purpose for man that is different than his redemptive purpose for animals and for plants and for all of creation. But let me throw a couple wrenches into that ideology. And I'm not saying I'm right. This is just something I've thought about. And I think that a lot of people want to immediately say that there's not going to be animals that you had as pets in heaven. I'm not going to say definitively one way or another because the Bible doesn't speak on it. That's why I say that this is a biblical hypothetical. I just want to suggest that perhaps God is more concerned with the animals that are in our lives than we are. So 2 things. Number 1, when God created the world, Genesis 1 and 2, he created animals, number 1, first, and then he created mankind after, and he made man in his image, meaning they have the right to rule, and they were endowed with the same creative ability that God had. And I'm sure there's a lot more that could be said about the image of God, but that's not what today's video is about. So God creates man, and he says, man, you have a responsibility over the animals and over the ground. So there's a tiered hierarchy that God establishes where God is on top. His rule is mediated through humanity, who rules the animals who are on the earth. And I don't know if the animals, what their relationship is to the earth besides the fact that they're on it. So man is put in control of the earth, and obviously that doesn't last too long because Adam and Eve sinned, but they're put in control of the creatures on the earth and the earth itself. And given a response, Adam specifically is given a responsibility to name all the animals that are with him in the garden. And so that to me shows that God has a concern for the animals, and he has a concern for his relationship with Adam. Adam is given the right to rule over these animals, and he demonstrates that by giving them names. And so God is showing Adam that these animals that are in his care are good, they're special, they're something that God cares for. When sin enters the world and God ends up giving Adam and Eve clothes that are made from an animal skin, the assumption then would be obviously that an animal had to die because of their sin. And throughout the rest of the Old Testament, we see animals being sacrificed. And I would argue that's not because God has some morbid love for the killing of animals, but it's because the life of an animal demonstrates to the person who is doing the sacrifice that their sin is costly, their sin costs a life. It should be their lives, but their sin is mediated through that animal. In the same way, when Christ died on the cross, that is a constant thing that we can remember, that Christ died in our place. His blood wipes away our sins. And so we trust in him for the salvation of our sins in the same way, or in a similar way, not quite the same way, that Jews in the Old Testament trusted in the animal that they were sacrificing to be satisfactory to God for a time being, for the course of the year, where obviously more sin would occur, and they would have to repeat the process over and over and over again. So don't get it in your mind that God either has a negative view of animals or a neutral view of animals. I would actually say that God has a positive view of animals, more positive than we have. Secondly, besides creation, we have the story of Noah, which comes later, I believe in Genesis chapter 6 and following, 6 and 7. And I might be off on that, but that's okay. Noah is commissioned to take 2 of each animal onto the ark so that they can repopulate the earth. If God wasn't concerned about animals, or specifically the animals that Noah brought onto the ark with him, he could have just remade animals and another act of creation. But God does not choose to do that. He chooses to protect the animals that he had made by preserving them through the flood. And so that seems like, to me, the actions of a God who is highly concerned with the lives of the creatures that he's made. We also know in Revelation and elsewhere in the Bible that in heaven there will be animals present. And I say heaven, but what I really mean is in the new earth, there will be animals present. Now, you could make the argument that God is just going to remake animals because they're going to be wiped out when the world is destroyed and remade. I would argue that his remaking of those animals doesn't necessarily have to be different than his remake when he initially made the animals in the first place. So the personalities and actions of the animals that we've known on the earth could very well be something that God is concerned about, to the point where he would preserve them even for eternity. But again, I'm not saying that I have a sound foundation to say that part of my application. I'm just making the logical conclusion that if God is more concerned about our animals than we are, because he's their creator, he has a unique relationship to them that we do not have as their protector and caretaker. He's protecting and caring for them through us. It's mediated protection and care. But he's their creator, which is a step above anything that we can claim about those animals. So if God is more concerned for animals than we are, it would logically follow, in my mind at the very least, that God would want those same animals that he's cared for their entire existence to be in heaven. Now, obviously, there are plenty of ways that you can poke holes in this argument. I'm just saying, perhaps instead of saying, without a doubt, there are not going to be our animals in heaven, why would we think that that is the case or not the case? As I said, this is not something that I'm going to fight tooth and nail over. This is just a strange opinion because I hear a lot of people talking about animals not being in heaven, not generically, but specifically. And I want to challenge that and say, well, the Bible doesn't really speak on it. So instead of saying definitively not, what about saying possible yes? So that's all I have for that quasi-theory. That's what it is. It's a Bible theory about God's concern for the animals. This has been my 10th day. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you've enjoyed this, or you think that somebody needs to hear it who thinks that the animals in heaven are going to be completely new creations, or that animals, or God doesn't care about animals, whatever, those negative opinions, if you want to show them this video and say, hey, maybe God does care more about animals than we do, you can share this video. And of course, don't feel compelled to do any of those things. Just if you want to, you can. That helps other people find these videos who might not find it otherwise because they're not friends with me on Facebook or YouTube subscribers or Instagram or whatnot. Tomorrow we're going to be starting a mini-series called Why Does It Matter? And the first of that series is about prayer. So I'm going to be giving a biblical and logical defense for why prayer is necessary for Christians. Look forward to seeing you in tomorrow's video. I've been Matt the Rad. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.